Hi everyone, Doug and Julie here with our 2021 Ford Mustang Mach-E electric vehicle. In this episode, we wanted to share another day trip. This one to Cape Disappointment in southwest Washington state, just a few miles north of Astoria, Oregon. Julie and I were actually there fairly recently. We took my mom there in September of 22, but we wanted to go back and walk the jetty. Since the predicted weather for the Portland area was going to be over 90 degrees, we thought it was a perfect day to head to the cooler coast. We started our day with 99% battery, and as we were leaving, we reset both trip meters to measure efficiency. Usually when we head toward the coast, we take the Sunset Highway to get to Cannon Beach or Seaside. But since we were going further north, we decided to take Highway 30 instead. Highway 30 is a mostly two-lane highway that routes along the Columbia River from Portland to Astoria. The speed limit is only 55 along here, and there are a number of small towns that would slow us down even further. But we would have to deal with less traffic than on Highway 26, and the slower pace would actually help overall efficiency. Plus, we were in no hurry. One advantage of not being in a hurry is we could stop and snap some pics of the sights as we went along, like here at the Lewis and Clark Bridge that connects Rainier, Oregon with Longview, Washington. We would actually cross this on the way home, but more on that later. Fun fact, in the greater Portland area, when the sky is clear enough to see Mount Hood, we say, "The mountain is out." Well, today all the mountains were out. We especially had Mount St. Helens in many of our views, even more so on our return trip. A couple of hours into our drive and we arrived in Astoria, probably most famous as the setting of the movie The Goonies, but was also featured in such classics as Kindergarten Cop, Short Circuit, and Free Willy. From Astoria, we would cross the iconic Astoria-Megler Bridge. This 4.067-mile bridge crosses the mouth of the Columbia River, sometimes known as the Graveyard of the Pacific. At 1,232 feet long, the main span is the longest continuous truss of any bridge in the U.S. From its heights, we could just about see our destination off on the horizon. "108.8 miles from home, we arrived at Cape Disappointment State Park with 69% of our battery remaining. The trip meter gave us an indicated 3.9 miles per kilowatt hour. This is excellent efficiency for such a big vehicle. If my math is correct, that would have given us a total range of almost 350 miles. Awesome. Cape Disappointment State Park is a popular spot for campers and fishermen, but we were happy to see it wasn't too busy on this day. We made our way out toward the jetty and parked as close as we could to the ocean. This jetty is actually the dividing line between the Columbia River and the Pacific Ocean. As you're walking out, the Columbia River is on the left and the Pacific Ocean is on the right. Most of the jetty is easily walkable, but the further out you go, the more it becomes a hazardous pile of giant boulders. We ventured out most of the way, but stopped a bit short of the very end. It's a very cool experience and worth a visit if you're in the area. Of course, if you prefer a nice walk on the beach, the park has plenty of that too. After our very enjoyable time by the water, we packed up and headed further north to Long Beach, Washington to get a bite to eat. We decided on Chico's Pizza. The pizza was fine, but they did not have any air conditioning. Did we mention it was almost 90 degrees? We did not linger. Since we had been this way less than a year ago, we decided we would head home a different way. Instead of going back across the river through Astoria, we thought we'd venture inland a bit through southwest Washington and eventually make our way across the river on the previously mentioned Lewis and Clark Bridge in Longview. We headed even further north on 101 until we got to 4, then headed south toward home. This turned out to be another beautiful Pacific Northwest drive with some cool sights along the way. And the best part of driving on 4 is a good portion of it gets much closer to the river than on the Oregon side. Eventually, we made it to Longview, crossed the bridge, and were back on our way on the very familiar Highway 30. From there, it was about another hour to home. So back at the house, we backed into charge and took note of our mileage and efficiency totals. We arrived with 31% of battery remaining after driving 236.4 miles. Weirdly, although we reset both trip meters at the same time and both registered the same miles, they didn't register the same efficiency. Trip 1 gave us a 3.9 miles per kilowatt hour rating, while Trip 2 gave us a 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour rating. Both are very good, but So let's do some quick math. Traveling 236.4 miles on 68% of battery gives us a total range of 347.6 miles. 3.9 miles per kilowatt hour on an 88 kilowatt hour battery gives us a total range of 343.2 miles. 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour on an 88 kilowatt hour battery gives us a total range of 308 miles. So maybe we were hitting the higher number. The weather was certainly ideal for traveling in an EV, at least in the morning, as it did get pretty hot later in the day. And while most of the highways have 55-mile-an-hour speed limits, we surely didn't average that as we hit a number of small towns and other areas where we slowed down a bit. So we certainly can't expect this level of efficiency on every trip, but it's nice to know the Mach-E is delivering on its promises when the conditions are right. One final note. I have to say how happy we are that we bought the big battery option. There's a school of thought that some people, especially Americans, buy way more car than they need. And many point out that buying an EV with a big battery when you are mostly going to drive it around town is a waste of money. And for the most part, I agree with all of that. But when it came down to decision time, we knew we would be taking fairly regular day trips like this, and the bigger battery would be beneficial. Let's look at this trip here. If we had bought an EV with a range of, say, 225 miles, we wouldn't have made this trip without stopping to charge. Not a terrible problem, but it would have necessitated a different route in order for us to pass a charge station, in this case quite a bit out of our way. And our longer return route was a spontaneous decision, one we would not have made with a car with much less range. The bottom line is, because of the bigger battery, we were able to enjoy our whole day without worrying if we could make it home. This is not the first time we've said that, nor will it be the last. We are a year and a half into owning this Mach-E, and in case you can't tell, we're still loving every bit of it. Thanks for watching.